Hi, I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and you'll never believe what this is. I'm here to talk about history and what was done with one piece of wood. Honestly, this is all one handle, and all this is done. Someone thought I should be able to, a guest who can't come to the studio, but she had this. It's made here in Southern Oregon.
Is it?
And
beautiful.
yeah, I wanted to show it to you because that's some kind of work, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Clyde, I'm so glad you can share some stories about the way things were back when. When did you come to Southern Oregon?
1948.
And who came with you?
Well, this is my sweetheart, and we had 2 children at that time, and then we had another boy after we got here.
Ah, so there's an Oregonian in your family.
Yeah, that's
Now,
right.
this is the way it was when?
That's
You guys are-
When we got married.
43.
No, in 41.
41.
And now you've been married.
66 years.
Ooh, it's time for another write-up about you guys. 66 years.
Yeah.
And you have 3 children.
Yeah.
You want to name them?
Ron and Linda and John.
Ron, Linda, and John. We are just learning a little bit about you and your family. This is...
That is Ron and
His wife, Judy.
what?
His wife, Judy.
And his wife Judy.
And-
They are presently caretakers at Galesville Lake.
Tell me about Galesville Lake.
Well, it's our water runs off our country very fast, and so they needed a dam up there to slow the water down so it didn't do so much damage to the farmlands. And that dam is one of these dry creek dam, which
Roll Creek.
Roll Creek is a very unusual dam, and it was built in 40 days by working 24 hours around the clock. And so it's a kind of a second one that was ever built, and a lot of people from different countries came to visit it while it was being built because it was a low-cost type of dam.
It's an earthen dam?
No, they used Roll Creek. They put just enough cement and water with it that they could dump it out on the ground and spread it with a grater and then roll it with a roller.
Fascinating. Well, now, is it open to the public?
Oh yes, open to the public. It's a good place for water skiing, and Ron enjoys taking care of it because Boy Scout clubs come up there and they have to do a certain amount of work, so they clean up the trails, and it's Ron and Judy's work to look after. Now he's still a chainsaw mechanic at Myrtle Creek, but he'll soon be retiring from that. And
A chainsaw mechanic. Now, does he do wood carving with the chainsaw?
no.
Did you ever?
I was not.
That's some of it.
This is
I
made...
wouldn't call that carving. That's just plain straight cutting. Now, we did have a man who was named Ken Kaiser. And one December, he had been at University of Oregon taking sculpture work. So he came to our McCullough chainsaw dealer and said, and this was during their 2-week vacation, I'd like to borrow one of your chainsaws and see what I can do with it. So he used it out there on a piece of wood, and very shortly he had the likeness of a logger. And so our chainsaw distributor decided to hire him for making 5 pieces of sculpture work for the different saw shops. And so he made one of Jackie Kennedy and I don't know who all, but ours, we had a big log, so he made a Smokey the Bear out of it.
Oh, do you suppose I could get a picture of Smokey? I love him.
Well, we should have brought one along.
Well,
because
maybe we can find one.
Yeah, it was a real favorite.
And where were these displayed? Where was this?
Right there at Glendale Junction.
Okay, now tell me, people may not have heard the first show, but Glendale Junction, you bought young people, right? Post-war, you bought a gas station,
Yeah.
grocery
we
store.
bought the old Glendale Junction, but then after we were there for a year or two, we decided we ought to buy property over on the new highway.
Highway 99, though.
Well, no, it was.
It was going to be interstate.
It was going to be the interstate.
But just 2 lanes.
Ah.
So that's quite a story in itself of how we acquired it, but we did acquire 57 acres over there. Then we went to the highway department and they gave us an access on it, but we had to cut the mountain down to have a place to build. And so then by this time, our chainsaw business was our going thing. And so we built a little 16 by 20 building over there, and we were back in the chainsaw business. And then we found out we were just 200 miles from Portland and 200 miles from Reading, and cars were running out of gas. So then we put in a couple of pumps, and then first thing you know, we were pumping about 6,000 gallons a month.
6,000.
We had outdoor privy and no blacktop or nothing, you know. So then we built a service station, and Vernita's brother ran it for a while, and then we relocated the chainsaw shop, but I took care of the chainsaws. Then we got to thinking, you know, maybe people like a cup of coffee when they stop, or hamburgers. So we were looking in catalog, and we found what they call a Dixie Dog Drive-In. It came from Lubbock, Texas, and it was a 8-foot by 16-foot building. Everything went out the window. And we thought, hey, you know, that'd be okay. So we wrote the company, and they said, we just built one in Winston, which is up by Roseburg.
Right.
So we went up to look at it, and we thought that was pretty nice. Well, Winston was in the process of voting on a sewer bond, and they turned it down, and the health department says no new businesses open in Winston until you get a sewer system. So here they were, the facility's all ready to go. So we said, well, we'll buy it from you. We brought a lowboy up there, loaded on the lowboy, trucked it to Glendale Junction, set it off, and in a week's time, we're in business.
Oh, man.
And that was mine.
That was yours.
Yeah.
Now, who did the motel? Oh, you didn't call it a motel. You had auto court, or what did you?
No, now this was over in the new Junction, not the old Glendale Junction.
Okay, now in the old Glendale Junction, you had many different things going. You had a
not over in
grocery
the new one.
store and a auto court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, who did all the work in the auto court? Who made the beds? And
Well, I did.
I thought, who did the laundry?
But after we bought property on the new road, we leased that facility out to a logging outfit for a whole year, and they used it for their purposes. So then we moved over on the new Junction.
Oh, and so everything was new. None
Yeah.
of that hand pumping
No,
gas like
No
more now.
anymore.
no more. Oh, that's where you got these muscles, huh?
I have to tell you a cute thing about Linda. Linda got the mumps, didn't she?
No, she got
Measles.
measles.
And you know, you're supposed to keep the kids in the dark. Well, she was a rambunctious kid.
Well, Ronnie got him first,
Yeah.
and he was really sick. I didn't have any trouble keeping him down at all, because he was sick. But she didn't get him until the last day that she could get him, and I couldn't keep her down anywhere.
So here she's out pumping gas, and Linda comes in the store and sitting up on the counter, and somebody goes in the store. She says, "You better get out of here. I got the measles."
And she'd been told she was not to come in the store at all.
I'll just bet.
But Mother couldn't keep her. I couldn't pump gas and see that she was where she
Of
belonged.
course not.
There was another very dangerous thing you had there when we hadn't been there very long, and the gas man was pumping gas into the tank out there, and we didn't know it at the time, but all of a sudden we looked out there and here's flames shooting about 10 or 12 feet in the air, and the gas man said, "Have you got a burlap sack?" And I don't know, he was running around there fast, so we got a burlap sack, and he wet it, and he went up and closed it around the pump going in there and put the fire out. Well, lo and behold, Linda and Ron were out there, and Linda says, "Let's see where it's going." So they got some matches, and they had lit a match to see where that gas was going. Well, when the thing blew like that, they took off, but they both had singed hair, didn't they?
Yes,
Boy,
Are you telling me it was your kids?
our kids.
man.
And Ronnie rolled her in the grass and put it out, put the fire out.
How old was
Wasn't in her
Ronnie at
clothes,
the
though, was
time?
Ronnie was almost 6. Well, he was 6.
And he knew enough to
He
do the
knew
right
enough.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
But she was 2.
oh,
Yeah.
and you could have lost both
Oh,
your
man.
little babies.
Yeah, I'll say.
Oh my goodness. Now, this is when you guys are newlyweds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you are so cute.
Yeah.
And what's that car?
Well, that's her mom and dad's car. That happens to be a Chevrolet.
Vintage.
Huh?
Yeah, I think it was a 38.
Yeah.
Oh, don't you wish you had
Yeah.
that car still?
Yeah.
It'd be worth more than. And this train? Where'd happened to the train?
Oh, it's of course when the highway came through, took the property. Why then everything had to be done away with, So
I'm looking at 2 chainsaws here. Now, I have my own chainsaw, but it doesn't have one of those bars that's, my chainsaw's about like this.
yeah, but you notice this one has a drill on it. See, that has a drill.
Tell me, what's that
We
for?
used it for blasting stumps. And of course, I used it on here when I was drilling those holes sitting around on the wheels and put a pipe underneath. Yeah, they used drills on them, and they used them for blasting stumps.
I feel like I've just gone to school again because I had no idea.
In fact, the sawmill, once in a while, would get a log that's too big for the sawmill. So you could go down there and move in about 1.5 feet from the butt end and drill down past the center and put 1.5 sticks of powder in there, and it split the log. Then they could handle the log. We did that a few times.
Keep talking. I have never heard such a story. Bill Young, one of my historians, a logger guy, 90, I guess he was 94 or 5 or when he passed away recently. And he'd tell me about the log that they cut, that one log load on a truck. And then they had another truck that had the next log on it. And it took 7 logs to get 2 trees into the mill. Have you ever seen big logs?
Yes, we have.
Show me how big.
Oh, we cut one on our own property. It was
It was 6.
7 or 8 feet in diameter. And we were, when we were getting ready to develop that property, we were scared that it would fall down because the top looked like it had been hit. And so we didn't want a cat driver running around there with dangerous of the top falling out. So we fell that tree. Well, actually what happened, it must have got struck by lightning and killed the top because the bottom was just as sound as could be. And we had a hard time even falling. We tried to fall it up the hill. But we finally did, but it was a big log.
So they had to blast.
The blast.
We went and wedged about 15 sticks of powder in it and packed it all with mud and set it off, and the tree just kind of withered a little bit, and finally it went over.
Never heard that kind of story.
We were scared to cut it any farther.
Oh, man. Now, you folks have history. Glendale Junction was the first place,
Yeah.
right? Newlyweds came up with 2 little kids and bought into the American dream.
Yeah.
How much money did you cost you?
We paid a whole $14,000 for that property.
And how many acres did you have?
Well, that property only had 1 acre there. That was where the mom and pop store was. Then we bought 57 acres on the other side. I can't remember what we did pay for that. Do you? I don't know. Of
Well,
course, at that time, we didn't know whether we'd get an access to the highway either, because there's a limited access highway those days.
Well, I have to tell you.
Anyhow, it all worked out well.
And
it was quite a story buying it because the highway, they just came through. Well, they didn't buy the right of way, and it belonged to the 3rd wife and 5 children by the 1st wife. So it was a very tangled up affair to get settled. So the highway said, if you can buy that property, then we'll work with you. So we went took us 9 months to buy that property, little by little by little, and then we bought it, and then settled with the highway.
Because
and then
those
we got
were your
access.
neighbors, and they trusted you. Huh?
Yeah.
That highway was, I remember so keenly. We went up there to see this new highway that was built before there was traffic on it. And turned up the Studebaker, I should say, put the pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
And when it got up to 100, we figured we had arrived.
Did you have a Mercedes then?
No, a Studebaker.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
what
Studebaker.
fun.
Your dad was a Studebaker dealer. That's right.
He was indeed.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned this. I don't think that this letter has more history than we can imagine. It's called a V-mail letter. Why?
Because it was victory,
Victory.
mail.
Victory.
V is
V
for victory. Oh, and I found out that they used music from I can't remember who that. Beethoven's music. Thank you, Doug. My husband's cameraman and my prompter over here.
Yeah.
And they'd play that da-da-da-dum, which is actually Morse code for the letter
V.
V.
And of course, they didn't know, speaking German, that
Yeah.
we were continually saying, victory,
Yeah.
victory, victory.
Yeah.
This letter, tiny as it is, must have been a godsend when it had arrived. This is about,
I wrote him a letter every day the whole time he was gone for 2 years.
did they ever censor your letters?
Oh,
yes.
You
In
couldn't,
fact, sometimes they were cut all to pieces.
They cut it out with scissors or something.
you couldn't glue them together, could you? You had to,
Not before we turned them in. We had to leave them where they could be opened.
I remember
Yeah.
folding them. You got a different price. If you folded them, you had paid half a cent less than if you licked it. This is wonderful. I'm so glad you saved it. You guys have brought some real treasures. I guess my favorite is your 60th anniversary. You had long hair, different color. You're dyeing it now, right?
No.
Dyed gray.
It's almost all white now.
Well, as I understand it, the two of you aren't sitting in your rocking chair very often. What's Maranatha connection?
Well,
And Better Life TV.
I was hoping to turn my saw shop over to my son, and we were needing a church in Canyonville, so I was the building committee chairman. So I worked on that quite a bit, and after we got through with it, I told Vernita, wouldn't it be nice if we could get a chance to go some mission project and something? So we're pretty close to that point. Cave Junction was building a church, so we all went out there for a weekend and worked on it. And somebody told me about this group called Maranatha that a lot of times, if you go to an area, they don't have the funds or nothing to go with. So I found out that Maranatha had a usually two-week project. So we went down to, where was it there?
Thousand Oaks.
Thousand Oaks. They were building a church. Well, Maranatha was getting paid to build that church, and they were going to use the money to build 11 churches in Guatemala that winter. Well, we met the Vandenhoevels, and we worked with a group there and stayed in the what's the academy there?
San Pasqual.
No.
We stayed
it
in
was
the academy.
Newberry. Newberry Park.
Park Academy, and so we kind of got the fever, and that. So we said, well, along about December or January. Anyhow,
It was.
we
in
flew down to
December.
Guatemala because we knew the Vandenhoevels were there, and we didn't know how long we'd stay, but we flew down there, and so Vernita went right to work with the food business because Mrs. Vandenhoevel was taking care of that, and I went to work with Van. Well,
And you knew food preparation because you'd worked in the hot, what did you call that place?
Drive
Dixie
in?
dog.
Dixie Dog.
Dixie Dog.
And that was kind of like a trailer that the window came up and then you served out of it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we had 2 windows that we served out of.
Nobody sat in your trailer.
No,
They
no.
sat outdoors.
Uh-huh.
And you were the chief cook and bottle washer, and this
Well-
is in Glendale?
Well, it was on the Junction, the new Junction.
The new Junction.
Glendale.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Driving
that's
now.
real close to Azalea, isn't it?
Well, it's 8 miles.
Mm-hmm. So now you have her this lady knows food preparation, and you know hammer and nails.
Yeah. And block laying sort of amount to quite a bit.
And so how
Plumbing.
many of these trips have you been on, the 2 of you?
Well, that became our main recreation sort of thing. I'm not a fisherman, and so we went on over 80 projects from Norway to Azores to Mexico to Honduras and all these different places.
Had you ever imagined a Glendale girl with a hot dog stand being a world traveler?
No.
Have you enjoyed it?
Yes.
Every project's different. We just love it.
Now, where does this fit into your story?
Well, when the highway came through in 1965, they bought us out, as so-called buy you out. So they don't buy your inventory. They just said, "Oh, we want the buildings." Well, I had the chainsaw parts and saws and everything else, so about the only way you could do is turn around and put it back into business again. So
Sure.
the McCullough dealer said, "Well, if you'd build a new shop in Canyonville, we'd give you 4 towns. That'd be Myrtle Creek, Riddle, Glendale, and Canyonville." And they had a dealer there, but he wasn't doing a very good job, so we thought that might be the best thing. So we went over and we found a piece of ground that had really 8 city lots, wasn't it?
city
but
lots.
you wouldn't
Yeah,
have known it
lots.
because part of it was all grown up with blackberries. Had 2 old houses on it, so we I got a backhoe in there and checked out there where the blackberries was. I found out it was old creek gravel there, good for fill. So I got a big tractor in there and we built up about 4 feet high and put up this saw shop. And that took us about 6 months. By June, we were ready for business.
Oh, this doesn't look like saws to me. Folks, these are the cutest
it's-
little lawn mowers
Yeah,
you
we
ever
sold-
did see.
Yeah, we sold mowers and tillers and riding mowers and what have you.
Oh, the kid in me would just love to be on one of those. Now, you're not what you'd call newlyweds. This is when?
That was last year.
That's,
Or 2.
and so you guys are now up to 60,
We've been
66.
married 66 years.
As of November 30th.
66. You
And last
think it'll
November-
last?
Well, I think it took.
It took. When you got married, did people think it was going to last?
Well,
Did anybody say you're too young and it's wartime and
well, it wasn't wartime yet.
She was 18, I was 19. But I said I liberated her because her mother worked out of the home quite a bit, so she had to be the mother to her brothers and sisters and
you
her
had
dad.
experience running and your mom's work was what?
She was a nurse. She
But
did.
she worked a live-in nurse,
Oh,
so she'd only
took
be
care.
home maybe once a week or every other week.
No, she'd come home every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
that's the way live-in nurses did. Huh? Mm-hmm. And then she'd be there just long enough to
She'd
get
be
ready.
there the weekend.
She did all the wash, all the canning, and everything else. So I told her I liberated her.
Because now it was. How in the world did young women? Were you still in school? Did you
Of
have to
course.
quit school? or-
No, I didn't.
She finished high school.
Wow. And did the wash and the canning and the cooking and the.
Took care of my 3 brothers, my 2 sisters
Brother and 2
brother.
sisters. Her dad says, "Who's going to cook my breakfast?" He said, "Well, you got 2 more girls. It's time you're breaking them in."
Oh, So Dad wasn't really grateful for all the work you'd done. It was
Well, he wanted to know who was going to fix it, who was going to get up and fix his breakfast.
Her dad was a painter.
didn't he know about how to start the fire? You had a wood stove, or
Well, sure, we had a wood stove,
that's the way
but we
things.
had a gas stove too
In
that I
Sacramento.
cooked on in Sacramento.
Yeah.
You brought history from Glendale, and that's a town that I'd like. You had logging. In fact, I think you told me there were 5 mills in Glendale.
There was
Yeah, there's that many, and probably that many out in the
In the woods.
woods. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they tell me
Around.
the term gyppo logging is not a derogatory remark, but it meant that they were like gypsies that'd go to where the logs were.
Yeah. Now her 2 sisters married fellas who worked in the woods. There was a Adventist fellow that had a small sawmill, and he hired boys from La Sierra College during the summer.
Yeah.
So they came up there and worked in the mill, and then they came to our mom and pop country store while those girls came up to play store from. They came up in Sacramento, you know. So that's how they met their 2 husbands.
And a romance. What are the guys' names?
Chuck Peterson, and that's my sister that you met the other day,
Yes.
his husband, and my sister that
Edith.
met her husband. He was an Argentine, and
His dad had sent him up here to keep him from getting in the military service. So he's supposed to go to La Sierra College.
Yeah, I had my cousins came up at 17 because of that. My mother's cousins. Well, this is fantastic. I
Yeah.
thank you so much. This is about the names and dates. You were the cemetery. You ran the cemetery
Yeah, I was a
and the
sexton.
grocery store and the gas station and
Those
the
days we did-
motel and the
We digged a grave for $20, wasn't it? We thought that was big money.
by hand.
Yeah,
oh
by
yeah,
hand.
there was no
Backhoe.
backhoes to do it then.
Thank you so much for sticking with me. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and isn't it fun to travel back in history?
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in.
Okay.